Greetings, YouTube. Still trying out the headphone mic. We're going to see how that goes. Um, Someone made a very cogent remark about one of my videos I did. I posted, and I think it went live on the 25th of February. So I don't know when you're going to see this one. Um, and about the whole where the complexity level for a game is, that sweet spot that everybody seems to be chasing and is a moving target and we never quite get to. um, Too simplistic and you're not covering enough bases, overly complex, and you're covering all the bases, but then you're juggling 12 potential conditions that your character or creatures that are in the game are currently experiencing. It can become a bit of a nightmare, and I've seen mechanics that help people to manage those kind of things, like the condition cards, or I've seen people use like poker chips so that they would have poker chips underneath the miniature on the table. They were using miniatures, so that each poker chip, different color, representing a different condition state. So you put the poker chip under the character, boom, 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 and then when the condition ceased, you remove the poker chip, so now you know visually this creature is only under those two conditions and not the three conditions it was, 2 rounds ago. And that's a lot of juggling, particularly if you're a GM running, even a mildly complex encounter. Say there's 9 orcs against a party of 5. That's a lot of things to juggle, especially considering that the player characters are going to be throwing far more complex and complicated things at the orcs than the orcs are probably throwing at the characters. Um, but I also saw a video the other day, and it was a political. I did a video. It was a political response to it, and talking about the perfect baseball game, or when baseball was perfect, I should say. Not a specific game, but the era when baseball was perfect. And they've done studies, and everyone who is a true die-hard baseball fan seems to think that baseball was perfect in the past. And now it is not. It has fallen from grace. That there was a golden era at some point in the past, and now it is not in that golden era. And they want us to return to that golden era. Uh, and they've done the research, and if they start drilling down into that, and they can get people to finally give them as much detail as they can by what they mean of that perfect, baseball was perfect at this point. This point is when the person was 12. Does that say anything to you? Because at 12, you begin to understand some of the complexities of life. You're able to handle like the complexities of all the different rules, or most of the rules of baseball. And baseball, like any kind of endeavor that's been around for as long as baseball has been, it's got a lot of rules. But by 12, you're able to argue them pretty reliably. You know them in your head. You've probably used them repeatedly in both structured and unstructured games of baseball. So you're on solid ground when it comes to arguing with your friends about the details of baseball. But you don't know all of them. And you don't know the full range of human complexity. Because at 12, you just don't. You do not grasp everything that it is to be human, and how people are a combination of good and bad, moral and immoral. You haven't figured out that your heroes have feet of clay. So as you get past that age and you begin to enter the era of your life where that is something you understand, you still hearken back to that moment in the sun when you understood enough of the setting, enough of the rules, enough of the game to truly and absolutely enthrall yourself with it, without understanding all of the stuff behind the scene, all of the dirty, nasty stuff that you didn't want to have to look at. You hadn't opened the door to the sausage factory yet, so you didn't know how it was made. Because once you understand what goes on behind those doors, you can never unsee it. You can never unknow it. And I see that particular event happen with gamers. They all seem to be chasing that perfect game. Now, I understand we all want it. It's because, we do something for fun, and if something gets too complicated, it ceases to be fun. We don't want to do it. But if anyone out there who's listening to this has done anything that involves a skill, you know that the more you practice that skill, the better you get at it, the more you can do with it. I'll give you an example of something. This is just simple. This is just me. This is a scepter. I made it. This is an aluminum apple. This is a steel shaft. Now, this thing's not perfect. My stretch of the imagination. I work in post-apocalyptic themes aesthetics, so I'm not too over concerned about that. But the degree of skill that it took for me to make this, that you can't see, is much greater than something I could have done the first time I picked up an angle grinder. And I started working with one out on my porch because I didn't even have a shop. I was working on my porch outside. But I got better. I came to understand the complexities of things, and I can accomplish things now with the tools I have at my disposal, far more tools than I used to have, than I could in the past. I have an entire shop now, which gets more and more complex as time goes by, but also gets more and more organized, and it gets more and more versatile every single step of the way. And to me, that's what that sweet spot for is. It is just enough complexity, but not too much complexity. The problem is it's a moving target. And it's a moving target that is different for every single person that's looking at the target. You are never going to get 6 people sitting around a table to perfectly agree on what the target is when it comes to complexity to games. There are things that I look at and I go, wow, this thing covers all kinds of, conditions and all kinds of options and stuff. And then you go, oh yeah, this thing covers all kinds of conditions and all kinds of options, doesn't it? It's Pathfinder First Edition. The options are what makes it great. The options are what makes it horrible. And I understand that. And if you ask me on 10 different days which things I think I should throw out, which things I should keep to make Pathfinder First Edition perfect, I'm going to give you 10 different answers, maybe 11 depending on my mood. I'm just never going to be able to figure that out. I've seen things that were interesting interpretations of the the D20 system, like Five Moons, that did an interesting job. That was by, was it Sean Reynolds that did that one? I think it was Sean K. Reynolds that did that one. I recommend taking a peek at it. It's free. You can go pick it up on RPG, digital drive-through RPG. They have it for free. Um, and like um, Radiance is a good example. Radiance takes the D20 system, combines a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Every single player character species, their lineage is 2 pages. That's it. Every single class that you're going to want to play is 4 pages. That's it. And then you use all the different options that are available to put together a Lego'd-like species lineage that you're happy with, and then you plug in all kinds of different things from that options from the class to create the class within that sphere to your liking, and you go with it. It still has a lot of options. And while I think it's incredibly versatile, I'm not particularly in love with it because it uses mana style points that take away from your health, which I don't like. I'll talk about that again someday. But we're still looking for that sweet spot. And I don't know how to find it. I don't. And I've come to understand at 58 and finally on antidepressants and finally understanding that I have ADHD. And at the time of this recording, in February of 2023, I have an appointment to go have a neurological assessment done of me. Because I don't know all about what's going on in my skull, and I want to. And I suspect that there's stuff going on in there that I don't know about, and I'd like to. So knowing all these things about myself, I realize that I'm never going to find that sweet spot. That perfect era was sitting around a table in of my friend's house with the first gaming group I ever played with, around a table, sitting on chairs that were 400 years old. And I'm not exaggerating. It was an antique that we were allowed to sit at and game at. It was chugging Mountain Dew and shoving junk food in our faces at 3 a.m. while chasing demons or devils or battling things under the Storm Giant's castle. Go look up that module if you want to, Under the Storm Giant's castle. That's a hoot. And I can't ever get that back. Ever. But I also realized that things weren't perfect. I wasn't being treated with the respect at the game table I deserved. None of us was all that particularly well adjusted when it came to like a human interaction. All of us had feet of clay. But that memory, oh, that memory, and the other ones that followed it, where I was the GM, and I came up with some horrible things, and we had stupid amounts of fun, and we played a character until there were 26 level demigods in second edition D&D. My gods, we had good fun. And all that is gone. But it doesn't mean we can't enjoy what's going on now. So I hope that we all find our sweet spots, or close enough that we can just have fun. But I think it's foolish of us to delude ourselves into thinking that that memory of that perfect era is something that was actually in existence. It isn't. It's an illusion. It's something you could only perceive through your own ignorance. And it is something you can capture again. Because once you shed yourself of that ignorance, once you understand the complexities of the world around you to a greater degree, you can't ever go back. You can't uncork that bottle. It's done. But it doesn't mean we can't want to pick up some dice and throw them around and have some fun and argue about what is and what isn't needed in a game to have a good time. Argue about where that sweet spot is on that scale of complexity. We'll do it forever, and that's part of why we do it. So let's talk about our sweet spots. Have you narrowed down yours yet? Or do you understand that you may never quite get there?